to my grandfather, and then to my father. And then in the 1970s, my dad decided to leave Mexico and move to the United States for the American dream. He was a migrant farm worker. He worked in California. He picked oranges with my mom in Florida, and then he moved up to the Chicagoland area, and he picked produce for a large Dutch family over there. That's where I was born. That's where I'm from. So growing up, I'd always hear my dad talk about agave spirits and distilling because that's what he did previously in Mexico, right? So he would talk to his father, his brothers and sisters. So it was something that kind of like really intrigued me because, I want to be like my dad, still want to be like my dad. So I knew at some point in my life I wanted to bring this tradition back. And took some time, went into some different industries, went to school, and then went into the furniture industry. And then I went to the beer industry and I learned a ton from beer. And, from there, kind of just waited and waited and waited for the right time. And, the person who really pushed me to kind of, get Lost Lore started was my wife, Sarah. So Sarah's a huge part of this project. We were taking a huge deep dive into agave spirits and just learning the ins and outs of agave itself, ingredients, yeast, water, process. And, we kind of knew what we liked and what we didn't like. So she pushed me to do it. It was the right time because, any longer it might have just been too late. We had 4 kids. I had my career. It's just super busy. So, we needed to do it right then and there. So we started the project in 2021. Went to my father and I told him I wanted to be part of the project because he has a lot of experience in agave spirits. And, he was a little hesitant. My dad's at retirement age and, he really doesn't want to work anymore. But I was pretty persistent with him, asked him over and over and over again. And eventually he said yes, under the condition that we would make a tequila agave spirit that was similar in profile to what he made in the 1960s and 70s.
Yep.
So we went down to Mexico and we met with a lot of different distilleries. And, again, Sarah and I at that point, we were super, super knowledgeable, educated in agave spirits with the distilleries. And we went to numerous distilleries and, we met up with NOM 1414. And it was just a completely different, story with them. I think with other distilleries, it was just kind of more business forward when it came to NOM 1414, like we didn't even talk about tequila when we first met there. We talked about family and just about life. So my father was with me. I went there. I thought we were going to talk about process, agave, and ingredients, but Sergio Ivanko just did not talk about any of that stuff.
Uh,
So, we were there for so many hours and, Sergio Ivanko and my father have a lot in common. They're very close in age. They both lived in California around the same time. Sergio Ivanko used to run a Mexican restaurant over there before he was running Nam 1414. So, there for a long time, just had a great time, kind of got my dad drunk, over a period of 4 to 6 hours, trying a bunch of different tequila. And when we left Nam 1414, my dad had just such a big smile on his face. So I knew that that was going to be home for us. That's when Lost Lore Tequila was born. So, from there, we kind of just started taking a deep dive into, how we're going to make Lost Lore. Before we go into process of Lost Lore, with all our expressions, anybody have a question?
So maybe if you could just explain briefly to the non-tequila people in the group what NOM 1414 means.
Absolutely. So NOM 1414, every distillery, tequila distillery in Mexico is given a NOM number. So there's probably just over 200 NOMs in Mexico. And what those NOMs do is they make brands. There's some NOMs that only make their own brand. For example, Fortaleza only makes their own tequila, right? But there's other noms where they work with brand owners like myself to develop unique profiles. So that's what Nom 1414 does. They have their house brand. Their house brand is Viva Mexico, but they also make great brands like Siempre, Yayo, Alma de Jaguar, us, and some others. They're all different. It's not like it's the same juice that's just put in a different bottle. They all have their very unique profile.
Cool.
All right, so I'll go into the process and kind of like what makes Lost Lore Lost Lore. Again, every nom, they're going to have a different recipe, a different profile, right? So, for us, what we wanted to do is we wanted to make, what's called a rustic tequila, right? So that's what my dad calls it, a tequila you would have had like 100 years ago. So we're only using three ingredients. It's agave and water, yeast, and that's it. So everything starts with the agave fields and the agave. To have a good tequila, you have to have top-notch agave. Our agaves come from the Vivanco family. They've been growing agave for 5 generations, very, very long time. They're very good at it. They have really good, mature, sweet agaves, and that's what we use. We don't pull the agave out of the ground until it's ready, and it doesn't go by a certain time. It's not like we hit 5 years and we're ready to pull it out of the ground. What we're looking for is a certain Brix level. And when I say Brix level, it's like a sugar content. So we want to be in the mid 30s, even pushing 40s or above. So just to give context to this, a larger distillery, let's say like a Jose Cuervo, they'll pull their agaves out of the ground when they're like at 12 bricks. So it's a very, very sweet agave. It's 3 times sweeter than the agave that's used for Jose Cuervo. So at that point, and it's mature, we pull it out of the ground and then we start the HEMA. So the HEMA is when we start cutting the leaves off. And for our profile, which is very unique, we leave a longer cut, a longer shave. So we cut it, but then we leave about 1.5 to 2 inches of the green matter of the pencas. And the reason we leave that is because it gives us oils and it gives us more of a vegetal and more of mineral flavor to our profile. So from there, we bring it to the distillery and we start cutting it up into two, three pieces. And we take out what's called the cogollo, which is kind of like the middle of the agave. It's very bitter. It's something that we just don't want. Then we put it in our ovens. We do use stone brick ovens. We don't use autoclave. Stone brick ovens, it cooks over a longer period of time to convert those fructans into sugars. So in total, we cook for about 50 hours. Half of that time is with the steam on, the other half is with the steam off. So it gives it a long time. It's almost kind of like a pot roast, right? If you have a pot roast and you leave it in a slow cooker for 8 hours, it's just, very, very, very tender, and then you could get a pot roast piece of meat and you could cook it completely different and it may be tough, something very, very quick. And that's why we use these stone brick ovens because you want it to be really tender. We really want those sugars to come out. So once we're done cooking, we go into a roller mill. So our roller mill is gently squeezing the juices out. All those juices go into our fermentation, and fermentation is probably the most important part of the process because we're going to get a lot of our flavor profile from there. So we do use a mixed fermentation of champagne and rum yeast. We let it ferment for about a week. It's a little bit shorter in the summertime because it's warmer, and it's a little bit longer in the winter time. Just because the temperature is a little bit cool. So while we're doing this, we play classical music. So this is called the Mozart method. It's something that 1414 is known for. So Sergio Cruz's belief and the Vivanco's belief is the vibrations of that music really help the fermentation process. So, there's no science behind it, but if they like it, hey, I like it. I think the profiles are coming out pretty good. So after fermentation, we go into distillation. Distillation is really important too because that's where we make our cuts. So there's 3 cuts that we make: heads, hearts, and tails. For Lost Lore, we only use hearts. We use the best part of the distillation. We do not use any heads. We do not use any tails. So that's the first distillation. You get what's called ordinario. It's probably somewhere in 20s of ABV. Then it goes through a second distillation, and then it comes out probably closer to just over 50% ABV. And then that's where we have Lost Lore Blanco. So in general, that's pretty much where we're at, in a nutshell. Our whole process, again, we are additive free. We're only using 3 ingredients: agave, water, yeast. When we go and we bottle, We have our Blanco, and there's nothing else we add to it. And then we go into the barrel aging process. So before I go into kind of barrel aging, because it's super important for us, anybody have any questions about, the agave, the cooking, fermentation, roller mill, distillation, any of that?
And Kevin says he has a question.
Yeah, not specifically about distillation, although I probably would have a lot of questions about that. I think the question I want to ask is, so of the five samples, four of them are 40%,
Yeah.
and one of them is 55%. As a whiskey person, I generally prefer my ABVs to be higher than 40%, 46%. So I guess this is a two-part question. Is this the same sort of thing as in whiskey? 46% and below, you sort of chill filter, um, and 46% and above, and you don't chill filter. And then secondly, it looking at the series, it looks like Lost Lore has sort of a general opinion about the ABV of the tequilas that it presents. Is that true, or like what would the Lost Lore sort of opinion of presenting ABVs to its consumers?
Yeah, I'm with you on the ABV. I think that I have kind of like a whiskey bourbon approach where I like higher proof ABVs. And that's why we came out with our still strength Blanco. So our still strength Blanco is 110 proof, 55% ABV. It's what I like. It has a lot of aromas to it. It's got some great sweetness to it. Of course, the ABV is higher, but it's just a really, really flavorful tequila. Now, when we came out and we started looking at the landscape of tequilas. And as much as I like high proof, there is a little bit more of a bigger market for 80 proof, 40% ABV tequilas. That's our core. So Blanco, Reposado, and Añejo is our core. Again, because that's kind of like what the market wants. But at the same time, we have kind of like this emerging, part of the market where people want high proofs. So for me, I was all about it because that's what I like to. And, I do like whiskey. I do like bourbon. I like that extra ABV because I think it brings out just so much more flavor. So in 2024, we came out with some tequilas that were higher in proof. Again, the one that I just spoke about, the still strength, which was 110. And then we came out with a high proof Blanco, which was 98 proof, 49% ABV. And then we came out with a high proof Reposado, which was 98 proof, 49% ABV. So yeah, we're just going to continue kind of like, playing around with that space. Our lane is 40% ABV all the way up to 55%. And I think we're going to bounce around here and there.
Should we start?
You guys want to start tasting?
Sure.
Go to the fun stuff? Awesome.
Getting
Let's
thirsty.
do it. So I have Blanco Reposado Añejo. And then you guys have the core Blanco Reposado Añejo. Then you have the 55% ABV still strength. And then you have the Russet series there too, right?
Yeah.
So I think the best one, obviously, to start off with is going to be our Blanco. So let's go ahead and taste our Blanco. And, I have my thoughts about aromas and taste, but like, it really doesn't mean anything. I think that what's most important is kind of like what you guys think about the aroma, what you guys think about the taste, the reflection of the tequila. So, I'll kind of walk us through a cata. What you guys do is just kind of like tasting through tequila. And I like to hear from you guys of what you think. And then from there, I'll kind of let you guys know what I think and kind of like what we promote and what we talk to accounts about and, what I think our tequila tastes like. But here goes our Blanco right here. Okay. So typically what I do is, I use, a wine glass. I think that there's a lot of different glasses out there that you can use. I always feel like a wine glass, it's kind of like a bigger opening on top so I could get more of that aroma. I use champagne. I'll use the Rito glasses. I think all of those are pretty good. So, I'll roll the tequila around a glass. And then from there, the first thing we're going to see is, kind of like the viscosity of our tequila. Okay. So, like I said earlier today, we leave a longer Hema, a longer piña because we want the viscosity and we want those oils. We don't want our tequila to be flabby. We want to have, some body to it, some viscosity so that when you do drink tequila, it kind of coats your mouth, right? And it kind of lingers for a little bit. So I'll take a look at it first. And then from there, I try to smell in some different areas, right? So I'll smell kind of like towards the top, you know, and then I'll smell towards the bottom. You're going to get two different aromas. So, like, if you smell more towards the top, you'll probably get maybe a little bit more of that agave. If you smell more towards the bottom, you'll probably get a little bit more alcohol, but it's different. I think it's good to smell that because we're just kind of like adjusting everything with the way we smell and the way that we're going to drink right now. Okay, so from here, what I always do before I start drinking and doing a tasting is I'll take a very, very small taste of our tequila just to kind of get our mouth ready for, this tequila and what's to come because we're going to be going up in ABV, right? So I'll take a small taste. Just kind of wash it around my mouth and then all my taste buds are starting to kind of get ready for this, right? So now that I've had it sit in my mouth for, 5 to 10 seconds, then I'm ready to like really, really taste it. So I'm going to smell it and then I'm going to go and I'm going to drink it. And then I'm going to kind of reflect on kind of like what I'm smelling and when I'm tasting, right? So, we'll smell first. I've drank this tequila so many times, so it always smells pretty similar, and I kind of have my thoughts and ideas. But since my butt Mike is here, what do you think, Mike? What are you smelling?
Like it's very agave forward. I smell the earthy tones in it. And that's getting it from the bottom of the glass.
Agreed.
When I'm smelling on the top of the glass, I get it. I get it. I get citrus. I get a citrus smell.
Yeah.
Which to me, like my favorite tequilas always have that strong citrus flavor, and that's what grabs my attention. But yeah, that's
Yeah, and
clean.
that's
It's
kind of
clean.
like what we get from our agaves. Our agaves come from the highlands, and we feel like the agaves from the highlands are just a bit sweeter, a little bit more citrus forward, and the agaves in the valley, they're great too. They're just
Yep,
different.
yep,
The soil is
earthy.
different. I feel like it's a little bit more vegetal over there, maybe a little bit more mineral forward. But yeah, you hit it on the head, man. I mean, that's kind of what I get from this too. I start smelling it. I'm definitely getting some citrus from it. But cooked agave, I get a ton of cooked agave from it.
Oh yeah,
So,
oh, yeah.
when we start tasting it,
Mm.
and we start getting like a lot of those similar profiles. Some things change a little bit. Um, any thoughts? Anyone want to kind of chime in what you're tasting?
It's so good. Yeah,
I
say
think
no.
Mike, I was
Sorry,
going to
go
say, Bobby, like Mike, that citrus note, I think is more like a lime rind, like almost like you've had the lime rind on it as well. I think that's kind of that's that citrus note that I get from that one.
Agreed.
Yeah,
Yeah,
agreed.
yeah.
Mm.
So
I get
one
a little
one
bit of
time,
clay, but I think that clay is agave. Like I don't know what agave tastes like. So
yeah, it is. It's coming from it. I mean, there's so many flavors and aromas that are coming from this, right? So when it comes to tasting our blanco, I get agave first. I get that sweetness from agave, right? And then from there, I get a minerality, a petrichor from our tequila. So when I say petrichor, I kind of mean like a wet cement almost. And then after that, it kind of finished everything off with, some citrus notes, maybe a little bit of orange. So I think that the first, two flavors are kind of like a little bit more prominent. I think the citrus is kind of like more in the background, but definitely cooked agave and definitely from there, a nice minerality. And we're getting that minerality from our agave itself, right? It's from the cuts, the benca cuts. So again, when we leave it a little bit longer, we start to get kind of like more of that vegetal taste from it. Awesome.
Well, awesome.
Ready to
I
move
was
on
going to
to the
say,
next?
and there's no burn at all.
No,
I don't
no,
like
no.
nothing burns going from the tongue down. It's smooth as silk. It really is.
This
Thank you.
the sweetness blows me away though. I honestly, and I'm very new to tequilas as a whole, but I never, they're not overpowering sweet, but I didn't expect them to be as sweet as they are.
Yeah, yeah. I think a well-made, traditional tequila should have some sweetness to it.
Yeah.
And again, when I talk about bricks levels, it's all coming from the agave, right? Because we're pulling agave from the ground that's 35, 40. I've seen 45 bricks, just like really, really sweet. And that sweetness just carries over into distillation.
And I
I
think
was
the
going to say
champagne
for
yeast has a lot to do with that as well, right? To bring that flavor out. Yeah.
I was going to
Well,
say for the Canadians reference, we ice wine is picked at 38 bricks, so 40 bricks is really high. That's super sweet.
super sweet. Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, we're in the highlands, we see agave get pretty far up there. Again, it's a different soil, and when you're in a valley, um, totally different soil, and we typically don't see it get that high. I see typical valley agave is probably, just under 30. So yeah, I think for us, like we really, really like what's coming out of the highlands.
Quick
All right, you guys
question.
ready? Yep.
Can I just ask one more quick question? When you were talking before about the fermentation time in the winter and the summer differing, do you find the distillate from those fermentations to greatly differ because of the fermentation time being shorter or longer?
Yeah, yeah, it changes for sure. So, we have yeast that we use, and it just likes to kind of ferment a little bit faster, right? When it's warmer, it's just excited. So there's times where, we try to hit like a terminal gravity. So like our terminal gravity, once it gets to that point, it kind of leaves residual sugars, right? So, we don't want it to sit there forever because then, some other types of yeast like lactobacillus gets attached to it, pediococcus if you leave it for a longer period of time, Brettanomyces. So like all that stuff right there would just continue to kind of like dry a fermentation up a little bit more. So like, we try to hit roughly like a terminal gravity and then we pull it. But of course, that we're dealing with timing, right? So like it's a chain over there, and sometimes we're not able to, go into distillation right away. So it's definitely varies. We're dealing with a natural product, and we're dealing with the elements too. We're dealing with different agaves all the time, from different terroirs. So our lot definitely changes from lot to lot. Our tequila is kind of like just a living organism, right? So that's a cool thing to try with these traditional tequilas, and you'll taste it too with stuff that comes out of Cuscawen, stuff that comes out of Fortaleza, 1579 El Bandido. Like if you taste a lot one compared to like a lot five, it's different, and there's just so many variables that make it different. But the quality is always really, really good.
I have a question, Arturo.
Yep.
Does it make a difference if you're harvesting the agaves, let's say, in a certain season, like summer to winter? Even though your temperatures don't drastically change as much, like up here in the States, like
Yeah.
is it like always a certain point of the year that you would harvest most of the agaves, or is it constant throughout?
Yeah, no, it's just kind of, when it's ready. There's just only kind of like one part of the season that we try to stay away from. And that's the rainy season, which is kind of, more late summer in Arandas for us in the highland. We really don't do it just because of the rain, right? But any other time is kind of game for us. And they're all different, right? We're pulling agaves when they're ready. So, some agave may be ready, some may not be ready. And it's just like all at different times. So, yeah, pretty much throughout the whole year.
Okay, nice. Nice.
Cool. All right. So we'll get into our reposado now. So I have it right here. If you guys look at it, reposado, it's pretty light. So our reposado sits in ex Jack Daniel whiskey barrels. It sits in there by taste, but we really see that kind of landing anywhere between 4 to 6 months. Okay. So, before we kind of go into this one, let's think about it, right? It's got everything what the Blanco is, but we're starting to build off of our Blanco and kind of add character. All of our age expressions, we're trying to make agave the star of the show, and we're just trying to complement what agave is. So from here, you have oak influence. Let's go ahead and taste it. Let's smell, let's taste, and just kind of reflect and kind of go from there and what you guys are thinking. So there you
But
go.
I have a question because I've heard on a couple of recent tastings, when you get your Jack Daniels barrels, are they how washed are they?
So our Jack
Or sorry,
Daniel barrel,
rinsed out.
yeah, yeah, they're not really rinsed out much, but we kind of reuse them too at the same time, and that's kind of like the beauty of barrel aging because every barrel is different, right? And then from there, your wood's different, but at the same time, the age of that barrel is different. This may be a fresh barrel from Jack Daniels. It may be a barrel that was used 2, 3 times. We really don't go above that. But the more that you use it, the less of that Jack Daniel character you're going to pull. So once we start spelling this, we start getting some of that Jack Daniel character. Anybody want to kind of throw out there what you're smelling?
No. I don't know about smelling, but definitely getting some nice little hint of caramel off of it that I really
Yeah.
like.
Agreed.
Yeah, I think
Mm.
I mean,
Yeah.
without, I don't want to sound critical. For me, this is more difficult to pick out the notes on. For me, I guess maybe the description is it's rounder, and so as a result, for me there's less for me to attack. I think I do get the Jack Daniels character, but I think I preferred the Blanco because it was like I really liked that petrichor uniqueness to it. At least from
Yeah.
my perspective, petrichor may not be that unique in the tequila world, but for me, I really enjoyed that.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I'm a Blanco guy. I do drink reposados. I drink añejos. I drink all age expressions. But I always gravitate towards Blanco. It's just kind of what I like
Yeah.
because again, we're trying to make agave the star of the show for all these age expressions, but you're going to get some barrel contribution. So as far as taste goes on this one and aroma, I start getting some of that oak character to it, right? So I get some oak character to it. Definitely get some vanilla notes. I think that kind of like a blend between those two is really what's coming out of our reposado. Our reposado, when it's aged, we do try to use kind of like fresher barrels because those fresher barrels, they're going to kind of give a little bit more contribution, a little bit more life. And I think that once we kind of get into añejo and talking about that, I kind of explain a little bit more of how we adjust ABVs on these. But I guess while we're talking about it, for this one, we do put this one in at a higher ABV, so it extracts more of the barrel in a shorter period of time. You're definitely going to get whatever was in that barrel before. And again, it's just kind of more of that Jack Daniel contribution right there.
Yeah, the mouthfeel is so creamy on this one.
Thank you.
Yeah, what proof is that in a barrel at then? You mentioned it's at a higher proof.
Yeah. Really good question. So for our reposado, we put it in there at 49%.
Okay, nice.
Yeah, so that higher ABV is going to pull more notes from the barrel. When we get into añejo, we put it in there at a lower ABV because we're going to leave it in there for a longer period of time. So it goes in probably like right around 43% ABV. So again, it sits there for a longer period of time. When you put it in at a higher ABV, it extracts a lot right from the barrel. And for añejo, we don't want that because it's going to sit in there for a long period of time. So with our reposados, pretty much all of them get barrel aged, closer to 49%. And then from there, we'll proof down with demineralized water.
And do you do the gradual watering or just at once?
I'm sorry?
Like when you do your proofing down, do you do it all at once or gradually?
We do it all at once. Cool.
I really like that one. I don't find there's a ton of nose to it. The first one had a lot more nose, but the flavor on that's fantastic.
Yeah, it's good.
Yeah. Awesome. Thank you. Appreciate that.
You guys distilling with mineral water?
I'm sorry?
Are you guys distilling with mineral water, like well water?
Yeah. So throughout our whole process, we're using deep well. But when we go to proof down, we use demineralized water.
Okay.
So like that's a good question too, because we put deep well water on our bottles, and deep well water has certain minerals in it to accentuate, or whatever it is. So like, taking a deep dive into water, I mean, there's all these different minerals, right? Well, what I pay attention to coming from a beer background is I pay attention to calcium chloride, calcium sulfate, because those are the ones that can make like a really big impact on your tequila or anything that you're making, right? So like with calcium sulfate, you kind of accentuate flavors. You could really bring out the flavor of an agave. Calcium chloride will kind of round flavors out a little bit. So it's something that we do a ton in a beer world. When it comes to 1414 and the deep well water that we're using, it's not something that we get into too much, but it's something that we're going to have a conversation about so that we can maybe tweak our water a little bit so that we get a little bit of a different profile with some future expressions.
Cool. Thanks.
Yeah, absolutely.
On the nose, I get it reminds me of a barrel room.
Yeah.
You feel like you're just standing outside the barrel room and you get a whiff of the barrels. It's very nice.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Yeah, I like rub salads, man. I just like, I mean, you'll see like with all the other stuff that we do, I don't really dabble too much with añejos. We have one añejo and that's it. It doesn't mean I don't like them. I just, I really like blancos and I'll play around with reposados. So like once we get into the rest of series one, we'll take a deeper dive into barrel aging and, kind of like what we really like about reposados and the flavors that we can get from them. Well, cool. Anybody have any questions about Repo before we move on to Añejo? All right, let's move on to Añejo. All right, guys, like I said, Añejo is an expression that I like. It's not one that I drink too much, but we wanted to ensure that we had an añejo that was very welcoming. Obviously, with añejo, we have our blanco. We put it into a Jack Daniel whiskey barrel. Again, the proof is going to be a little bit different. It's going to be lower. It goes in there at 43% ABV at 86 proof. Again, the reason we're doing that is because we're not looking for a ton of barrel contribution right away. It's over a longer period of time, so we put it in the lower ABV so we don't pull so much so quick. We're looking for a long haul. So this one right here, it'll stay in there by taste, but we're seeing that is roughly right around 16 to 18 months. So, about a year and a half. So it sits in there and it definitely pulls out some different flavors from that Jack Daniel whiskey barrel. Let's take a sip, let's kind of reflect on this. I'd love to hear what you guys get from this one because this one I always hear a lot of different things. And I have something always in my head when I try our añejo that I kind of, say, and some people are like, oh, okay, I get that too. So, salud.
Salud. I love the color on it for an Añejo. It's beautiful.
Yeah,
Like it's almost clear for an Añejo.
yeah.
Watch this. That's
We
nice.
try to use the older barrels on this one. So this is definitely not like a fresh dump Jack Daniel whiskey barrel that we use. These are older barrels, man. These are
Very
barrels that
nice.
2 times already. So yeah, definitely a little different.
How many times do you use the same barrel before do you discard them after a period of time? Do you
Yeah, what we'll do is we'll use a barrel, probably 3 times, and then from there we work with the 1414 team to kind of figure out what we're going to do with that barrel, right? Because we want to try to use barrels as long as possible. We'll do some scrapes and toasts or chars, just kind of depending on how much life the barrel has. But ultimately, if we keep using the barrel over and over and over again, it ends
just
up just kind of being discarded. Yeah.
okay? Thank you.
When
Yeah,
Sorry.
someone said
Yeah,
cilantro, and
before-
I can smell cilantro. I get cilantro too.
Yeah,
Yeah, I feel like
I
I'm
sort of saw
crazy.
someone write cilantro. I'm like, damn, they've nailed that.
Yes.
There was one there as well. Yeah,
It's like you
I,
get the creme brulee and the brown sugars, but then there's like
yeah,
that cilantro note. Yeah, CJ,
yeah,
you're like bang on.
yeah. That's incredible.
So
so
sorry if it was
some of
asked
the
already, but what's the difference between añejo and the repo? Like, what's the difference?
Yeah, no, great question. So there's 5 different expressions of tequila out there, right? There's blanco, reposado, añejo, extra añejo, and then jóvenes. Those are the 5 classes of tequila. So a blanco is able to be aged for up to 2 months. Okay, so it doesn't even have to be aged. It could just be straight blanco, kind of like ours. We do not age ours, but it can be aged up to 2 months. So from there, we go into the category of reposado. So reposados are aged in barrels between 2 months and 12 months. And then from there, we go into the añejo category. So añejos are aged in barrels between 12 months and 36 months. And then we have the other class, which is an extra añejo. So extra añejo is pretty much anything that's 36 months plus. And then the last class that we have is joven. So joven is any age expression mixed with the blanc. Great question.
You're not
Anybody
including
else?
the Cristiano or whatever it's called. Where they?
Cristalino? Yeah, Cristalino is always kind of like it's hot over in Mexico. We probably won't make one. But what a Cristalino is a age expression. It could be reposado, it could be añejo, it could be extra añejo. That's ran through a filter. It's typically a charcoal filter to kind of strip all the color of it, and what we're left with is a Cristalino. So my team, really doesn't drink them. So like whatever we make, I want to be excited about, and maybe something will change in the future. But as of right now, I'm just like not super excited about them. Nothing wrong with them. If people like to drink Cristalinos, that's totally fine. But for what Lost Lore is, it's just not a Cristalino brand. But yeah,
I dipped into that popcorn.
what's that?
Dipping into that salt and popcorn, I think, huh? Pretty good.
Yeah, so they use. Sadly, they're not using Lost Lore for their popcorn. They're using 1800 Añejo. So it's like a sweeter. You get it. It tastes like a caramel popcorn.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You're
cool.
right.
That's awesome, man. That's awesome.
Cool.
So yeah, this is our Añejo, man. Like again, like I'm a Blanco guy, but when I get into these age expressions, I want to make sure that they're tasting good for me too, right? Because if I'm going to put my name behind it, I want to make sure it's something that I will drink day in and day out. So for this one, I definitely get some creme brulee. Someone said it already, but I get some really really nice caramel notes from this. I think someone put out there. I'm sorry, the messages pop up and they kind of go away, but Someone said that it was lighter, or lighter in taste profile. I think someone said that.
Yeah.
So the reason for that is because of the ABV that we put it in there at, right? So we put this in there at an ABV of 43% instead of 49%. So it's not like really aggressive extracting those flavors from the barrel. So everything's kind of like mellowed out.
Interesting. Yeah, for me, the Repo was much more going on than the Añejo.
Yep.
Yep. Stronger.
Agreed.
And
Yeah.
the better mouthfeel too was creamier, more viscous. The Añejo was okay, but yeah, the cilantro notes really interesting.
Yeah, that's the first time I've heard that one. So,
Sorry, why do you put it in the barrel at such a low ABV?
We're not looking to extract like a ton of flavor from the barrel with añejo, because it's going to sit in there for a long period of time.
Okay, got it.
So yeah, we're leaving ours in there for 18, months roughly. So if we put it in there at a high ABV, it would just extract so much, and it'd be in there for a long period of time. It pretty much turn into a whiskey.
Yeah. I really like how much agave notes come out in the añejo. Just because I find sometimes you go añejo or extra añejo, and it's like you don't taste any agave. It almost tastes like a rum. I've had like some extra añejo that just tastes like rum or something
I have
weird.
zero reference when you don't know what that smells like.
Yeah, no, that's a really good point. And again, we're trying to we're drinking tequila, right? So we want agave to be there. We want it to be the star of the show. So, it doesn't mean I don't like bourbons and whiskeys. I love them. I think they're awesome, but they're different, right? With bourbons and whiskeys, they're just taking so much character from the barrel. And, I believe that's kind of like what makes a bourbon and whiskey, right? But like with tequila, we have, this amazing plant that sits in the ground for such a long time. I just feel like it'd be a disjustice if we kind of masked it with a lot of barrel character. So yeah, we always try to leave, some agave character, good agave character, in our age expressions.
Sorry, I was going to say I feel the appreciation of how tequila is made from the start to the end.
Yeah,
is what gravitates to everybody, really, and that's what makes people become tequila drinkers. And it's not just about the tequila; it's the history. It's the process of how it's done, the labor. Because I know other spirits doesn't go through any of that. It's pretty no money, right?
Yeah, no, making tequila, making the old fashioned way, man. It's just it's such work, and it's not easy by any means. If you look at the whole process, all the way from the agave field all the way to bottling, it's a lot of hard labor,
A lot of work.
especially in the agave field. It's like we're not buying, and again, this is not a knock against like whiskey or anything like that, but we're not just buying like grain in a sack, in a super sack. We're not buying corn, that it comes in a bag. Like, this is something that, you get, and you have to put your work in, whether you're going to be in the fields, taking it out of the ground, which is a ton of work. The humidores are like super fit because it's a hard job. But like, even when you bring it to your distillery, you always have to bring it in a full piña, and you have to put the work in to start cutting it up. So it's a lot of work, and it just takes time, and again, I'm from the beer industry. So like we buy a ton of grain, and, with grain, there's, a harvest all the time. With agave, there's not, it comes out of the ground when it's ready. It could take, easily 5, 6, 7, 8 years.
Kevin wants to know why you make tequila and not mezcal, and what the specific difference is.
Great question. So my family started making agave spirits. So when they made agave spirits, they were basically making tequila. The reason that they are not able to make tequila is because of the DO. So the Mexican government, or the CRT, will only allow you to make tequila in 5 different areas in Mexico. And one of those areas is not Zacatecas, where my family's originally from. So you can make it in Jalisco, Michoacan, Guanajuato, Tamaulipas, and Nayarit. Those are the only five. So when they started setting the denomination of origin, the DO, my family wasn't part of that. But what's crazy is where my family's at, probably 5 miles from where they're at, they can make tequila. So it's pretty wild. So the other part of that question is why or what the difference is between tequila and mezcal. So tequila, you can make it in those five areas. Mezcal, you can make them. I think right now it's 9 different areas. One of those areas being Zacatecas. And then with mezcal, you could use a numerous amount of maguey is what they call it. They don't call it agave, but it's the same thing. With tequila, you could only use one type of agave, which is the Blue Weber agave. So, what's awesome with mezcal is they use these amazing magueys or agaves. They have different taste profiles. So my family works a lot with an agave called Masparillo, and it's just like a citrus bomb. So that's kind of like the main difference between mezcal and tequila is mezcal again, you got to make it in certain states. Tequila, you make it in certain states. With tequila, you only use one agave. With mezcal, you could use, so many different magueys and agaves.
So
Hey,
these are Blue Weber.
Then you get the smokiness out of the ground because it gets cooked on the ground, right? And that's where the
Yeah,
smokiness comes from, mezcals, right? Yeah.
yeah. And I guess like the other part of that question was why I don't make mezcal and I make tequila. And so when my dad, he moved here to the States, he was basically making tequila when he left, right? Because he was using Azul, which is basically Blue Weber agave. So when he moved here and, his brothers and sisters and parents stood back in Mexico, they lived in Guadalajara. They moved to Guadalajara. So when I was a kid, I pretty much would come out here every summer for a month, 2 months, whatever it was. And I just was so like immersed into tequila because when you come to Jalisco, when you come to Guadalajara, it's tequila country over here. So I was just more versed in tequila. So that's the direction I went into.
So Sean's asking how long your repo spends in the barrel.
Our repo's in a barrel for 4 to 6 months. So again, it goes by taste. Sometimes we leave it a little bit longer if needed. But yeah, our repo, it doesn't sit in there for a super long period of time. Just because, we want to ensure that the agave character is still there.
Hey, Jared, you want to just talk? You can just ask the question.
I didn't want to talk over anybody. So a question about the barrels back to, and I think a lot of people found the añejo very light, which I like. And normally that's a heavily used barrel. Can you talk a bit about, like, are you guys just using what's available at the distillery? Are you selecting your own barrels? And then an add-on question to that is, have you ever thought about, are you guys thinking about using new barrels and experimenting with like French oak or anything different like that?
Yeah, awesome question, man. Like what Lost Lore is all about innovation. And last year we came out with 8 different tequilas, including our core. So we're definitely looking at different barrels, and we have barrels down there already. We have French oak barrels, we have cognac barrels, we have a jackfruit barrel that we're fighting with the CRT with right now. Have a lot of different beer barrels over there, a ton of different stuff. Yeah, I mean, innovation is super important for us, and we're definitely looking to use a bunch of different barrels moving forward. But back to the first part of that question, as far as barrel availability, what we do is we kind of do a big buy from Brown-Forman, Jack Daniels, and we kind of get those barrels over here, and we start using just whatever barrels there. So this is something that we do with 1414 and the Vivanco family. So we all kind of like share barrels. So just depending on like what projects we have, But when you go to our barrel house, those barrels are all over the place as far as age goes. Some of them are fresh barrels, some of them are second use, third use, whatever it may be. But it's just kind of all over the place. And you'll notice that through our reposado and our añejo, that when you start tasting lot to lot, they won't taste exactly the same. We noticed that lot one was really sweet, and then we got lot two, which was it had a nice sweetness there, but more of that barrel character came through. I think that there was maybe a little bit more bitterness that came through too. So again, like we're traditional, right? And we're dealing with a natural process, and we have so many variables. Like from lot to lot, we cannot guarantee that the taste will be the same. If you want something like that, the bigger brands can do that. But for what Lost Lore is, what we can guarantee is quality.
I got a question.
Yeah.
For example, with the Blancos, when you came up to Blancos, how many actual bottles get made and distributed out? Like, for example, I'm looking at the bottle, so I have one that's 92 of an amount, like 1,000, a few
Yeah,
hundred.
yeah. Yeah, no, that's an awesome question. For us, what we do is we kind of go through different lots, right? So, right now we're going through a bottling, and this is going to be, I think, probably lot five of our Blanco. So, lot five in total amount of bottles, we're probably at maybe 2,500 bottles in total. So it's all relatively pretty small.
Okay, nice, nice.
Yeah, yeah. Well, cool guys. You guys have the cool stuff over there. I think that right now, maybe what we should go through is the Rested Series one. That one is one that's really near and dear to me. So we came out with a series last year called the Rested Series. Now, what the Rested Series is our reposado that's finished in another barrel. So it's basically a double age, double barreled reposado. I am from the beer industry. I run a brewery in the Chicagoland area. The name of the brewery is Sangre Brewing. We do a lot of awesome beers there. A lot of IPA. We do a lot of lager, and we definitely like the age expressions like stout and barley wine. So our goal for this whole series was to get different barrels from different breweries across the country and to finish our reposado in there. So the one that you guys have right now is a really excellent one. This is from Bottle Logic. They gave us stout barrels. Name of the stout was Fundamental Observation Vanilla Stout. So they used it to age their stout in. And then from there, they sent them down to us in Mexico, and then we put our reposado in there. So we let it sit in there for a period of time. Our goal was to let it sit in there for 2 months at first, and the flavor was awesome. So we let it ride a little bit longer. So it sat in there for second barrel aging for an additional 4 months. So you get roughly 4 months, from our regular reposado, and then you get another 4 months here. So this is probably roughly 8 to 9 month reposado. Yeah, man, I don't have it with me right now, unfortunately. So I have I poured a little bit more Blanco right here. But what do you guys get from this? What do you guys thought? Aroma, flavor?
It's fantastic. It's Bobby's favorite, actually.
This is my favorite repo I've had in my tiny tequila journey. This is my favorite repo. This might be one of my favorite tequilas. It's so good. When I had it, I'm like, oh man, I gotta get another bottle right away. And then it took me like forever to find out who had them because he's like, oh, there's not very many left. I'm like, no.
Yeah, yeah.
This is definitely my favorite nose of all of them. This is got a fantastic nose on it.
100%.
That's nice. That's beautiful.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
I think it's a very interesting one because, I mean, Arturo just mentioned the whole history with the agave and his family and everything, but he being a brewmaster and then kind of connecting the tequila world, this is quite amazing and unique. I never seen another tequila using another ex beer cask in the industry, so I think you were, want to say, the first one doing this.
Yeah, we are the first tequila brand to use stout barrels. That's for sure. Now, as far as the research that we've done, there's one other tequila company that's used a beer barrel, and that was Fortaleza. They did that with their winter, um, with the winter blend, yeah, and I think that was in 2019. So I think it might have been the first one they did. I have to check, but they use something completely different. So they use the English beer cask. English beer is very low in ABV in terms of, or compared to a stout. So an English beer is probably closer to 5% ABV. When it comes to stout, we're using barrels that have stout that was 12, 13, 14, even 15% ABV. So very, very high, very sticky, a lot of sugar content, a lot of flavor. So yeah, we're excited about this one. When you smell it, you're getting just like so many different aromas and flavors. But what really comes through on this is kind of like chocolate. You get some chocolate there, you get some vanilla, and that's coming from two different areas. It comes from our first barrel aging with the Jack Daniel's barrels with that vanilla. But then, once we put into the second barrel, I think that's kind of like when this chocolate note starts coming in. And then we get a little bit more vanilla because that's what it had in there was a vanilla stout.
You get the mouthfeel too. It's almost like a creamy, foamy, more mouthfeel, like a lot more going on.
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
Another very cool thing that I get in the market here has feedback to is that consumers really like that you actually mention who you're partnering with on the label.
Yeah.
Bottle logic. So there's a ton of different other like whiskeys and other spirits that are like, oh, we cannot disclose the name of who we use, whose cask we actually use, but you're doing it,
Yeah.
and people like
Yeah,
that.
we're doing it, and that was important for me because I'm from the beer industry, and we want to continue this series, and we are going to jump around brewery to brewery, and we will never make another fundamental observation recit series. This is it. So I think that there was probably, I don't know, maybe 700 and some bottles out there. So if you see it, grab it, and if you like it, we won't do it again. We may work with Bottle Logic again, but using a different type of style because they have a bunch of different ones. But this vanilla style fundamental observation, we will never do again. And that's part of the Recit series. It's one and done. So we have some really cool ones coming up. We have another Recit series coming up with KCBC in Brooklyn, New York. We have one with Phase 3. They're based out of Chicago. And then we have one with Westbound and Down. They're based out of Denver, Colorado.
Cool. If I may add here, while we're talking about this specific expression, I don't know if you guys probably know about who Zin is here in Calgary in Alberta, but he actually forgot he had an allocation, and he went on vacation, so his case is being released actually this week. If you're interested in grabbing some bottles.
Where?
Which bottles?
That's Zin Wines and Spirits.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, they pull it. They forgot they had it, but they pull it. They're it's January. We had it here. It's like, it's pretty interesting.
So who wants to do a Zin order then?
So how many bottles are they getting?
6.
Oh,
already sold. Already sold.
Yeah, stop forgotten somewhere.
It's recorded now. My head was up first.
It's okay. It's good thing Phil's not in the group. He would have bought it already.
Yeah.
So just so you know, because again, these ones are one and only. Again, they won't be reproduced as Arturo is saying. So grab it if you can.
Yeah. I'm glad I got 2. So also the design of the bottle, because the bottle is awesome. Like it's got like a really nice weight. I like the shape, the size. Like, what was your thing behind the picking the bottle?
Yeah, so our bottle, it's a custom bottle, and it's made from recycled Coca-Cola bottles. Oh. So if you look at it, it's kind of got like a slight blue hue to it, because here in Mexico, there's a ton of glass that's still used, and that glass breaks, and the person that we make bottles with, that's who they buy from. So it's a recycled glass. We pay a lot of attention to our packaging because we feel like it's important. For us, the tequila, we have so much work that goes into it. We wanted a packaging, a bottle label that was going to be very representative of what the tequila is. So for all our expressions, it has new artwork. We work with a really talented artist in Mexico, in Guanajuato, and no two artwork is alike. So for this one, what we did is we showed kind of like the charring process of a barrel, right? So you guys may not have the artwork there, but it kind of shows like originally where the barrels were at NOM 1414 with the Vivancos, and it shows the barrel in front of it. And then we're charring a barrel. That's how we char barrels. What we do is we kind of put a little bit of a solution to kind of get it going, and then we'll char it for a short period of time. It's not very long, 15 seconds or whatever it may be, depending on what we're looking for. So all of our artwork, we're trying to show process. We're trying to show the tequila process from the beginning all the way to the end, because we think it's important to show our story of tradition. So yeah, keep on the lookout for all the different stuff that's coming up. We have a lot of artwork in the pipeline for all the releases that we're going to have in 2025.
So Mauricio, we're getting I guess the next normal, like weird one coming would be the Ambrana.
Yeah, we're right now we're working on it, on the bottling schedule and all of that. So yeah, that'll be the next one.
Okay.
We'll see if Arturo gives us a nice allocation for Canada. So we'll see.
You said it's going to be roughly around the same price as the rest of?
Give or take.
Give or take, yeah.
Give or take. Yeah. Could be. Yeah. That's what we're going to be reviewing here in the next couple week or so. So, but we'll definitely let you know for sure. So that
I have a question for everybody. What do we have to do to get Lost Lore in Ontario, i.e. LCBO? What do we have to do?
Hey, who cares? It's honestly, it's cheaper in Alberta. Just keep it there.
Yeah, exactly.
So I will let Sean step up on that one, because he's actually, just so you guys know, Sean is my business partner. He's the other half of Forza Wines and Spirits. He's located in Calgary. I'm in Edmonton, but he deals more with Toronto and all of that, those shenanigans there with the LCBO. So
hi everybody.
We can hear you.
With Ontario and the LCBO, that's the last market we're working on right now. I mean, we're kind of looking at a backdoor way into Ontario right now with another through a distillery, and then he's got an agent's license. So I'm just trying to understand fully about that situation, because it's like Manitoba. Otherwise, we get the application once a year. We throw our application in. We say what we want to do, and then they get back to us by saying, "Yeah, you can apply again next year." So it's a rough battle right now, because everybody's trying to get in there. So the big boys obviously have a big stick, but I'm finding it's changing, because I think they're getting a lot of pressure about having only celebrity tequilas available. I know when I was out there visiting, I went to, a nice Mexican restaurant, and I kind of looked at everything, and it's like, okay, do you guys have a tequila that has no additives? Like, is there something that's not diffuser made, or that's not a celebrity, or there was just no choice?
We don't even know.
So it's something that we are working hard on, but we're trying to do it the right and the smart way to get into the market. So I hope that answers it.
Hey, Tim, stop laughing, Tim.
I just know how brutal the LCBO is. That's why it's hilarious. There is no easy way of doing it. It's just the LCBO. They're brutal.
It's super hard. Very, very hard.
So, Mauricio, I don't know if you caught before. So, Tim's the master distiller at Gretzky.
Yeah, I heard that actually. Yeah. It's nice.
He knows all the joys of
dealing with the LCBO.
Yeah, exactly.
That's why this group we all have we all have connections in Alberta, because we don't give a crap about the LCBO. Sorry, Mike. It's easy and convenient because it's down the street, but man, if I can get it delivered to my door and I don't need to go to the LCBO, I'm all for that, and it's cheaper out west.
Yeah. Yeah,
Well,
yeah.
hopefully it happens. We'd love to see it, in Ontario for sure. So I think we're having some really good traction in Calgary and Alberta. So hopefully it happens soon. I know we have more tequila. I know we're running a little late, so I want to get into our last one. So our last one is our still strength Blanco. So this is really unique, and we've kind of touched on this already. Where I like high ABV spirits, whiskeys, bourbon, tequila. So my challenge to our master distiller Sergio Cruz was, well, let's do a 55% ABV tequila. That's the max that we could do it. So our tequila usually runs from distill at 53%. So right away, that posed a little bit of a problem. So Sergio was pushing 53, 53, 53. I was pushing 55, 55, 55. And then Sergio said, okay, we'll do it, but this is the only time. Next time it comes out, it'll be at 53%. So what we had to do for this one is we had to use heads. So with your heads, you're going to get a ton of flavor, higher ABV. It's more volatile alcohols, but if you do it the right way and the right blends, it's okay. So that's what we ended up doing for Lost Lore Still Strength. From this, you're going to get a ton of agave. It's just super, super sweet. Definitely going to get the citrus from there, the minerality, just everything just seems like more amplified, right? The petrichor is coming out. This is probably my favorite tequila right now. I really, really like drinking the still strength. We have a high proof that's at 49% too, and it's totally different. And it's just like surprising, like, these small tweaks that we make and just like the totally different profiles that we get. So if you like this one, definitely check it out if you like the 55%, because the next time we come out with this, Sergio's the boss when it comes to distilling, so it'll probably come out at 53%. So if you like the 55, definitely grab it now.
Yeah, I don't think is there much of this left too, or is this pretty much gone too?
So that no, it's whatever's gone is done. We I don't know, Sean, you have something to say there?
Yeah, there's I caught a little bit of heat and I looked at it. I'll be honest with you guys, Craft Cellars has it and they have it at cost. So some other distillery, some other stores were mad at me, blah blah blah. I just took heat on this week on it. So I was in there. They have their little display, and basically what they have is pretty much what's in the province. There might be one or two cases outside of there. That would be about it. I think Crown Cellars might have one case, but other than that, it's probably Craft. But Craft has it at cost, unless that's changing today. But the other day I was there, it was, yeah, like I could have bought it off the shelf cheaper than they sell it to me for.
Yeah.
So I don't know what they were doing, but I think they're just on an inventory reduction after Christmas. They're probably just trying to. It might have been their Boxing Day sale. I'm not sure, but it's. I was there today, and they're having till system issues still, so I know that they're just that part isn't being looked at. Sorry, that little. Not trying to advertise it or nothing, but if you guys want to buy, great spot, great time.
Yeah.
I just bought a case.
Sorry?
I just bought a case a couple days ago.
Yeah.
Thank you. That's insane.
So
Who wants to do a craft
next
order?
year, Arturo, it's likely we see then at 53.
53.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then the high proof still is gonna be always at 49. We continue
49.
on. Oh.
Yeah. Exactly.
Now, just to clarify, I didn't buy it all for myself. I shared.
Sure. Yeah, I know. You're not Dev, so it's all good. I'm sure he bought 10 cases. So for me, this is, this is so good. It's almost got, now that I've had the Blanco and the rest, because this is the first time I've had the entire lineup together because I waited to do it with everybody else. There's almost like a sweetness, like a 7-Up pop. I don't know what 7-Up is. It's got like this really fruity, citrusy syrupy kind of it to me, even at 55, to me this drink's like maybe mid 40s just because I'm used to high ABV, but like this is a dangerous bottle in a good way.
Yeah, yeah. I know Dimitri said that, it tastes like kind of like grassy, which is like definitely some great notes that I get from that. So I like that.
Are you
Zesty, I think, is a really good descriptor for that. It's got that zestiness of the grassy kind of, but then that citrus fruit as well. You've got that zestiness to it.
Yeah, that
Yeah.
might be the brightness I'm getting from it is like the
Yeah,
citrus,
yeah, that
bright,
zest.
grassy, sweet.
Oh, it's so
Mhm.
good.
Yeah, it's
are
my
Yeah.
you
favorite.
sold out of it? Are you sold out of it in the US right now, Arturo? This
So we when we released Still Strength, we sold out right away as a brand. It sold out. I mean, we had orders before it even came to the States.
Yeah.
You find some accounts right now that have them. We did send, and this is something we normally don't do, but we did send kind of like a lot to the East Coast because the East Coast did not get any. So the East Coast just got theirs probably like a couple months ago. So New York has got it, Jersey's got it, Florida's got it, and we're trying to kind of get it out there a little bit more here in the coming weeks. But yeah, there's some in the East Coast, but Midwest and West, I don't think there's too much left.
Yeah, I'm asking because some Americans actually reach out on our social media asking if where they can find it here in Canada. So
Yeah.
that happens. There's limited stuff. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
No, a lot of the things we do is kind of limited, and it's not because we're trying to like do something where it's like, okay, there's only this much and like buy it as soon as possible. It's just like we want to do so many different projects, and we only have so much bandwidth. So a lot of these LTOs is what we call them, limited time offerings. They're under 2,000 bottles. So it's kind of cool, unique stuff, and yeah, man, we're just gonna keep it rolling for 2025.
Yeah, it's super. Like I've
it's
only been in like agave for like the last little bit under a year, like getting into the really good stuff, and I went hard. Like this stuff's great. Like your blancos, like it just comes out of the glass. It just oozes the nose, the flavor. Like it's the creamy. I'm a big mouthfeel guy in the whiskey, like my whiskey part. Like just
Yeah,
the mouthfeel on the blancos is excellent.
thank you, appreciate that.
so
I would have said before tonight that I'm a
Um,
Reposado guy. I loved the Blanco, loved it. It blows my mind, actually. I have
Thank
to
you.
say the Reposado was so unique that I pray that Zin has those right bottles and I'm getting one of those. But if I
Get on that quick because they're almost sold out.
yeah, I already got one. I already ordered one, but I did send them a note saying I hope the bottle matches the picture. But I'm shocked. I honestly didn't think I liked Blancos as much as these are so good. And I don't,
Thank you.
I like I like the still strength, but I also really love just at 40%. For me, there was something in that one. There was a texture to it, a sweetness to it. I don't know that I did not expect that I'm not getting in the still strength as much. I don't.
Uh-huh.
I'm struggling between the two. To be honest with you, I really am.
It's that odd, like what he was saying, the wet cement note that sounds bad, but it gives like a really unique flavor that makes it really good.
Yeah. And this is what we mean when we say rustic. We want a rustic tequila, and it's all coming from the agave. And again, like our pina shave is a little bit longer, and we feel like we get so much more characteristic and viscosity and flavor from the actual agave plant. So, yeah, man, this is what Lost Lore is. Again, this is a family tradition that's been going on for 100 years, and we're just trying to keep it going.
yeah, it's funny that I mean you're right on point there, Gary. What you're saying, we at Forza we have a big wine portfolio as well, and me and Sean we always say like as soon as we taste the blanco, it's like there's not one single person who doesn't like it, even those who don't like tequila, they're like, holy smokes, this is fantastic. So we call it kind of like it's like the Pinot Grigio of tequila. Like everybody likes it. Everybody loves it. It's so approachable, and yet it's rustic, but it's like everybody likes it. So that's great.
But I think as whiskey drinkers, we want aged whiskey. We want aged spirits. And I think when you hear that Reposado or Agave is further aged, you naturally believe that that's better. But what I learned tonight is that's not necessarily true.
No. Yeah, that's true.
If I can give you a kudos, Arturo, I've tasted the still strength with a couple of big industry people. I won't say who right now, but they pretty much said it's the best still strength they've ever had. There was one I tried last night for the first time. It was 44.5, or sorry, 54.5, and made it a very good nom and everything. But the flavors of yours and the sweetness, the expressions that came out of a 55% tequila in your still strength is incredible. It's something that I can't find in other ones out there. There's so much going on.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Hats off to you on that.
Hopefully, hopefully Sergio wants to make another couple batches at 55 along the way.
55.
Yeah,
Canada batch.
I'm going to switch the darn to do this. So I mean, we'll see. we were like fighting about it. I was like, no, I don't want to do it anymore. I don't want to do it anymore. And I was like, oh shit, here we go. So I'll be there.
Sergio's sleeping.
Yeah,
maybe I'll get them drunk with 55%, and then we can start talking.
It's so interesting too. So like I've got a little collection going now, and just to see, because there's like a bunch of the Alberta guys that are really good, all the reps, and they have different. It's funny to see different 1414, and then like the different so the Siempre and the Yayo, and then your guy. It's so fun to do like a side by side to see how different, even though it's coming from under the same house, how different each brand is. It's so unique.
Yeah, no, it is. Every process is different, and there's some distilleries out there that will make just one tequila and they'll just put a different label on it, but that's just not what Non 1414 is. We carefully curate our profiles, and we had a certain profile that we wanted to go for. So my father was a big part of this project, and he knew what he wanted, and it took us a while. It was not a quick process, but I feel like we did pretty well with it, and we're still trying to build on top of it.
No, it's very good. Yeah, I mean, I think everyone's seemed like well, there's a bunch of groups that have a bunch of groups together, so they can't vote individually, but there's still strengths at 53. The rest of the Repos close behind at 41, but the rest, I don't know how everybody else, but I would say those two, even for me, those two were my favorite. The Standard Blanco is really good. Like, it's excellent. Like, that wet cement note really stands out, makes it very unique, too. But yeah, really good.
Yeah, I ordered a bottle of Blanco already. I ordered the regular strength. I just love that. I don't know. There's something about that one that I loved it from the second I tasted it, and through the whole
nose. It's the nose on it.
Yeah. I'm
Thanks,
shocked
Gary.
because I like the Blanco more than the Reposado.
Thanks, Gary. I appreciate that, man. And I'm with you. I'm a Blanco guy, and I just go through cases of Blanco. I just really like it. That's what Sarah likes too, and we use it for everything. I like to drink neat, but Sarah makes some killer cocktails sometimes. So even in a nice margarita on the rocks, it's just so versatile. You could really do a lot of things with the Blanco.
Yeah, that's the best.
Let's cut the recording here.